Hi guys, this is Matt Schlicht from Zapchain, and I'm here with Olaf Carlson-Wee, the head of risk at Coinbase, and also the first employee at Coinbase, if I got that right.
Yes, indeed.
So welcome. Thank you so much for helping us with this Bitcoin course. I think Bitcoin can be kind of complicated for a lot of people, and this should help them have a better understanding of it.
Yeah, I think Bitcoin's complicated for everyone.
Yeah, so let's help at least a little bit. So tell us a little bit about Coinbase. I'm sure a lot of people already know what it is, but
Absolutely. So Coinbase is a Bitcoin wallet, fundamentally. We have a lot of different services that we provide on top of that. So we do merchant transactions, we do buy and sell services for regular users who want to get some Bitcoin or sell some Bitcoin, and we have an API for developers where they can build applications on top of the Bitcoin protocol without having to interact with it directly.
right. And then, I mean, Coinbase is one of the leading Bitcoin companies right now. So, how much capital have you raised? When was the company started? Kind of like how many employees work there?
Yeah, great question. So the company was founded about 2 years ago. We've raised $32 million to date from Union Square Ventures, Andreessen Horowitz, and a number of other credible investors. We have gone in the last year from 6 to a little over 40 employees, so it's been a little bit of a wild ride. Yeah, I hope that we can continue to expand aggressively in the future.
Yeah, and I mean, we're in the Coinbase office right now.
Yep.
And this may be, you guys can't tell this from this video, but this office is very secure. There is no way that you could get into this office if you were not supposed to be inside of this office. I think you guys have done a really great job at.
It was my job to audit the security of the office.
Right, which makes sense.
Yeah.
So how, like, you're at Coinbase now. You're helping protect Coinbase and its customers
Yep.
and the merchants. But how did you originally get into Bitcoin?
Yeah, great question. So I first found out about Bitcoin the summer of 2011. To be honest, I was immediately incredibly fascinated by it. The prospect of a fully decentralized, fully programmatic currency that wasn't controlled by a single entity, but rather by the network of users was incredibly fascinating. I think, within a week, I was wiring money around the world to buy Bitcoin. I was kind of telling all my friends and family about Bitcoin. I was exploring the space as much as possible, looking at all the companies that existed, all the users, talking to a lot of people. So I was also going into my senior year of college, and I was already studying decentralized online networks, things like massively multiplayer online role-playing games, MMORPGs,
Yep.
And also decentralized internet systems, so things like the torrent protocol, the Tor protocol, onion routing, things like that. And I decided to write my undergraduate thesis on these cryptography networks, specifically Bitcoin. So it was a little strange at that time because I remember when I told my professors about it, they had me search the JSTOR academic database and search it for the word Bitcoin, and there were 0 results. And they said, how are you supposed to write a research thesis on something where there's no research? With some kind of savvy dialogue, I think I eventually convinced them that this was a legitimate thing, or that at least the fundamentals behind it meant something for society. But it was quite a process to really convince everyone that this was a good idea. And it ended up being me educating my professors more than it was my professors helping me out. But in the end, I completed a thesis on Bitcoin decentralized cryptographic networks. May 2012. The Bitcoin space was still very, very immature, even though I'd been working on this thesis the whole time. During that time, the price was also dropping from the peak of $31 down to $2. So a lot of people were saying Bitcoin was dead. I was still super convinced that the technology had long-term potential and that it really was going to change the way we thought about monetary control, monetary policy, payments, and just decentralization in general. So I surveyed the space. There weren't any what I felt really legitimate companies. None that had the vision I wanted. I wanted a really grand vision that was going to take on, the financial systems that be. I think that over time I started exploring and I found out about Coinbase. So I was Coinbase user about number 30. I was looking very closely at new services coming out. And when I realized I could buy and sell with a bank account, which no other company could offer, I recognized that this was the winner. The founders had a very grand vision for what they wanted to do with the company, and that's really what got me involved with Coinbase.
That's awesome. So this thesis that you wrote,
Yep.
did you release it publicly?
No, I did not. So I'm currently expanding it into a full-length book. That's been in the works for a long time, so I don't want to release kind of the version 0.1.
So did we just announce the book just now?
No. I mean it's not done.
I know, but have you told anybody that you're writing?
Oh
a book?
yeah, absolutely.
Like publicly?
Well, no.
All right.
People
so
at
you heard it
Coinbase,
here first. Yeah. Olaf from Coinbase is coming out with a book all about Bitcoin.
Yeah. So it's pretty technical, but I also think it's interesting if you're into Bitcoin. So I don't think it's for beginners, unlike this course. But
your book's like the follow-up.
Yeah. I think the course, then maybe a year of involvement, and then the book maybe.
Right.
The book's pretty intense.
I'm excited.
Yeah, but I was working onto a full-length book, and also I think that the thesis, the viewpoints there don't necessarily represent the viewpoints of the company. So I definitely want to keep those separate.
Got it. So you did your thesis, you're finishing up college, and then you're looking for like a company you're going to work for. And
Yep.
So you found Coinbase, and so you were or are employee number one.
Yep.
So like, how did you do that? Like, did you just reach out to
Yeah,
Coinbase?
so I was visiting a friend in Oakland, and I literally just applied online. There were only 2 jobs, customer support and software engineer. I'm not a software engineer, so I applied for the customer support job. Fred got back to me within 5 minutes and said, let's Skype later today. So he was on the ball, and I went through the process really quickly. I was in the office, I think 2 days later, did a long interview with Brian and Fred, and I really, really liked them, and I liked their vision, I think, more than anything. A lot of Bitcoin companies were trying to, what I thought felt like make a quick buck, and I wanted to kind of reinvent the financial institutions of the world, which is obviously a grand vision, and I think they kind of shared that. So that was really what drew me to it.
And so, like, you applied as customer support, but is that actually what you did when you started?
Yeah, so when I started, I was customer support. I did solo customer support until we had about 250,000 users. I ended up automating a lot of my tasks in order to get that done, because I think I was doing about 700 emails a day by myself.
Wow.
Which was really, really intense. Over time, it became clear that we were going to need to scale that. So we started talking to a lot of people for another person to be at the office, and it became clear pretty quickly that we were growing way too fast and that we weren't going to be able to scale an in-house customer support team. So instead, we decided to do a really cool thing, which was I knew there were a lot of really smart people in the online forum communities with Bitcoin, so particularly Reddit, Bitcoin Talk, and a handful of other forums. I thought that there were some people that really knew Bitcoin well. They were avid Coinbase users, and they were really smart. So what I did was I put together a test. It was kind of a Bitcoin test meets the SAT a little bit. And I posted on these forums, and I said that if you get a perfect score, you're going to get an interview. So I was trying to kind of entice people to take it. And we had a pretty remarkable turnout. I think something like 200 people took this test. So I found the first 8 people in about a week based on those test scores. Reached out to a lot of them. I reached out to a number of people who took that test and interviewed them and basically scaled up a team incredibly fast. So this was at a time last November, December, when we doubled our user base in about 4 weeks, and the number of tickets, so customer support emails we were receiving, went up about 4x in 2 or 3 weeks. Like it was crazy.
Wow.
So I hired a lot of people very, very, very fast, and the only way we were able to do that was by running a remote team.
So you have a distributed support team.
Yeah, distributed support team for the distributed currency.
Right.
So the support team, they're all awesome, top-notch, super smart people. They're coming from all around the world. So we have people in Paris, Germany, New Caledonia, coast to coast in the United States. So we have people everywhere. and they're all Bitcoin experts. So my thought was, I can teach someone to do a good job with customer support. It's going to be very hard to teach someone the fundamentals of Bitcoin and the intricacies of Coinbase's payment architecture, just to onboard them, to get them up and running. And we were trying to scale so fast. I mean, I was hiring 3-4 people a week at the peak probably, that I needed people to hit the ground running. So I got these really, really knowledgeable people. Most of them are still working with us a year later. So that has been an awesome experience.
Do you pay them in Bitcoin?
Yes, all of them.
That was like the best answer possible.
Yeah, I get paid in Bitcoin too.
100% of your paycheck?
100% of my paycheck for the last year and a half has been in Bitcoin.
And are you holding on to the Bitcoin?
Yeah, so I try to stay within the Bitcoin network as much as possible. I pay my rent in Bitcoin, and I generally pay for food and drinks with Bitcoin because I have roommates and I have them foot the bill, and then I'll pay them in Bitcoin.
Got it.
So it's kind of a hack for the time being until the grocery stores take Bitcoin directly. But a lot of my fundamental expenses I can pay in Bitcoin, and then I try to buy, when available, all the stuff I can buy online with Bitcoin. So a lot of the partnerships that we make actually service me directly. Stuff like Overstock and Dell and Expedia and everything.
So you're basically the motivating factor behind the Coinbase BD team.
Yes, well, I have kind of a personal vested interest in landing some of those deals, definitely.
So like, what's something you can't buy right now that you're really frustrated about?
Oh man, gas and food. You can buy gift cards in Bitcoin and then use those gift cards, but it feels
kind
like
of cheating.
It's too much of a hack, yeah. And the end company doesn't realize anyone's paying in Bitcoin. They're not being encouraged to really accept Bitcoin. So, I think that right now it's a lot of those fundamentals. Right now we're looking at a system where you can buy a lot of weird things online with Bitcoin, especially high-end electronics. Luckily, I'm a huge geek, so that kind of makes sense for me.
Someone actually sent me a link to buy an island with Bitcoin yesterday.
Yeah. I think real estate is surprisingly active with Bitcoin, and high-end cars. But it's mostly kind of very expensive, specialized goods. And I'm looking for a shift for Bitcoin to be used for just more normal day-to-day things.
Right.
I think that's going to take a while, but I think eventually it'll happen.
Yeah, I mean, someday hopefully you can just like walk down the street and go get like a coffee.
And I'm hoping it will fundamentally improve the payment experience long term, where you won't have to slide a card and sign or anything, but it can just be pre-authorized, potentially even just like from your phone in your pocket.
Yep.
So then maybe not for very large purchases, but if it's like under $100. You could just walk up, they scan the good, and it's just paid for because of some sort of kind of Bluetooth communication or NFC communication, something like that. So I want to make the payment experience totally invisible because that's when I think it's the best.
Right. Because why should we even have to deal with it?
Yeah, exactly.
If I have the Bitcoins and you have the sandwich, like, why can't we just
why can't
have
we just
a
trade?
seamless exchange?
Yeah.
So you started with customer support.
Yep.
Then you built out this distributed support team across the world, which is that's awesome. Most companies don't have something like that.
Yeah.
And they're all Bitcoin experts. They all get paid in Bitcoin. So now you're not doing that anymore. Now you've kind of moved to risk.
Yes.
And so risk is a super interesting topic. And I have Bitcoins in Coinbase, so I kind of feel like you're the sheriff that's protecting my Bitcoins. So
I am indeed, actually.
So like, how does that work? Like, what exactly do you do?
Yeah, so a lot of it is designing security protocols. So the way I think about security is it's really two-pronged for Coinbase users. One half of the security is our side of things. So that's making sure that all the Bitcoin that we hold, that those private keys are stored securely. That's the top priority. I think that's the number one value proposition of the company, is that we can do that well. We do that by splitting the keys into multiple pieces, giving those multiple pieces to different individuals that are scattered around the world geographically, and then storing the backups in bank vaults in encrypted form, redundantly and with multiple copies, again, geographically distributed. The idea behind all of this is that California could sink into the ocean and every Coinbase employee could die and the Bitcoin would still be safe. Also, any internal Coinbase employee could kind of go rogue and try to steal the Bitcoin and the Bitcoin would still be safe. So we do this through multi-signature transactions and encryption of paper and flash drive backups that are geographically distributed throughout the world.
So is there a person at Coinbase that their title is like bank runner?
Informally, yeah, that's there's definitely someone at Coinbase that is the bank runner.
Where they just literally like, oh, we need to get some Bitcoin
Yeah.
out of cold storage, so send them to the bank and then they come back.
There is that person, yes. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's a super complicated system, but within that, it's incredibly secure. I think, I actually think it's more secure, especially from rogue employees, than probably a lot of bank systems. But that's my own personal opinion. Of course, I helped design it.
The quote from Olaf, Coinbase, safer than a bank.
Yeah, I actually think it is in a lot of ways. But I think then the other side of the security, so that's kind of our end. The other side of the security is user-facing. So you have login username and password,
right,
and you have a two-factor authentication.
Yep.
So that goes a long ways, but that doesn't prevent against certain types of attacks.
Well, and explain what the two-factor authentication is.
Okay, yeah, great question. So two-factor authentication is basically instead of just an email and password or username and password, so that's kind of one factor in the sense that you need that password. The second factor here is a phone authentication. So a small token is going to be sent to your phone, and you're going to use that token to log in. It's a one-time token. It only lasts for about 20 seconds.
Right. So this is when your phone buzzes and it's like 5 numbers, and then you got to
Yep.
go type it in on Coinbase.
Exactly right. And without that two-factor authentication, you are weak to malware and keyloggers on your computer. So a keylogger is where a hacker kind of roots your computer, and every time you have a keystroke, that keystroke gets sent to their server, and they can then maliciously recreate that. So it's very easy to collect passwords when you have a keylogger. And
Right.
more people have keyloggers than I would ever like to admit, but they really do. So two-factor authentication helps fight that because these tokens can't be reused.
So what was the hardest thing to protect?
Phishing attacks. So phishing that's phishing with a PH. This is where someone sets up a website that looks visually identical to Coinbase, but actually the URL is different and it's not actually the Coinbase server.
Right.
So they've kind of dressed up like Coinbase, but they're not really Coinbase. And then they prompt you to enter your username and password and two-factor authentication code. In real time, that malicious user is on the real Coinbase website entering your username, password, and two-factor authentication code. So this is one way to, without a keylogger, actually bypass that two-factor
Right.
authentication. So what we implemented in order to fight this, two things that we built. One is device verification. So this means that if I log in from a computer that your account has never seen before, you actually have to go into your email. And so again, like step away from the Coinbase platform, step away from the phishing website, go to your regular email and click a link in an email that we send you that says, I verify that the login I'm currently doing is legitimate. So this means the hacker would also need to have access to your email,
Right.
Which is very, very difficult. And you can't really do that with a phishing website. So the device verification really halted the phishing attacks. I think the next step that we took is the Vault account. So this was launched maybe 2 months ago. And so the Vault is kind of a different type of storage. On our backend, it's the same. It's the same cold storage, key splitting, geographically distributed, and redundant method. But on the user side of things, a Vault account, when you withdraw from it, there's always a 48-hour delay. So let's say a hacker gains full access to your Coinbase account and they try to withdraw from the Vault. It doesn't leave for 48 hours. Okay, that withdrawal also can't leave your Coinbase account. It has to go to your regular Coinbase wallet. So they can't really send it off site. They have to send it to the wallet and they have to sit there reloading the page for 48 hours.
Right.
Within that, you also, as a regular user, would get a SMS text message alerting you that there's a withdrawal from your vault,
Right.
and you would get an email saying that there's a withdrawal from your vault. You would have to validate from the email, and you would have the option to cancel either through the SMS, through the email, or by contacting support. So throughout all of this, to get past username, password, two-factor authentication, device verification, and the vault, we've never seen it happen, crossing my fingers. But it's that side of things, I can say with extreme confidence, it's much more secure than my online banking is, which doesn't even offer two-factor authentication.
Right. So, for everyone watching, they may have some bitcoins or they may be about to get their first bitcoins. one, Coinbase is obviously a great place for them to
Yep.
buy their first Bitcoins, but when they have the option, do I set up a wallet on my computer and do I hold on to my own Bitcoins
Yep.
and kind of be my own Olaf?
Yep.
Be my own risk,
Yep.
management. Or do I put it on Coinbase and kind of let you handle it? I would suggest you let him handle it because of all the things he just said.
So,
and that's what I'm going to do with my Bitcoin.
And one thing I really like about Bitcoin is that users can pull it off of Coinbase and store it on their own and set up their own security parameters. That being said, I would be extremely surprised if anyone had security parameters as robust as Coinbase's. So I really respect users that take the time to set up their own security. But at the same time, I think that people often recommend to new users that they should manage their own security of their private keys, when in fact, I don't think that's a good idea. A lot of new users will, have Bitcoin for the first time, and they'll send it to their home computer, and it'll vanish, and they'll wonder why.
Right.
And the reason is they have malware on that computer, and they didn't even know it. So something like a keylogger, they'll download some malicious software targeted at Bitcoin users. All sorts of different things can happen. So, if people know what they're doing, I love that about Bitcoin, but I also sometimes fear that new users can be misinformed about the security parameters.
So, for people that are learning about Bitcoin right now, and it's still like magic internet money to them, and maybe like they read something in the media about, people bought drugs with Bitcoin.
The video game in the sky.
Right, or the video game in the sky. So, they haven't decided whether or not they think Bitcoin is good or not.
Yep.
So what would you say to them?
So I think it's not quite that simple in the sense that I don't think Bitcoin is inherently good or bad.
Right.
It's more a technological protocol. So like all technologies, it can be used for good or bad. But within that, I think that it's important to understand that Bitcoin is powerful. So Bitcoin decentralizes a number of mechanisms that previously have required a central authority in order to function. So what this means is that the network of miners and users actually control the rules of the money they're using, which in my view is the most perfect democratic system you could ever imagine, in the sense that I can freely opt out and make my own blockchain anytime I want. Unless I have more people that choose to do that with me, I won't be able to interact with other blockchains. But if for some reason, I didn't like the way Bitcoin was going, I could make my own coin and do that. And I like that there's competition between these different coins, that they're all decentralized, and that it's a better technology. I mean, when you look fundamentally at the payment rails Bitcoin has, it's relatively instant. Confirmation happens in about 10 minutes. And that's if the payment is coming from an untrusted source, you have to wait about 10 minutes. The fee is free or near free, costs about a penny, and it's irreversible. So once you receive a Bitcoin payment and you know that it's confirmed, there's nothing anyone can do to charge it back or reverse it in any way. And there's no counterfeit. There's no counterfeit Bitcoin. There's no fraud Bitcoin. You can't duplicate Bitcoin. You can't make a fake Bitcoin. It's sound money, and within that, it's just better than a lot of the existing payment rails where there's a number of middlemen. So you look at automated clearinghouse, ACH bank transfer transactions. They only cost about 15 cents, but they take 2 to 3 days to clear, and they all clear through one central authority. You look at Visa, MasterCard, credit card networks. To accept those transactions, you're paying a 2.9% fee plus about 30 cents. So that right there eliminates pretty much all instant microtransactions, both the two protocols I just mentioned. So with Bitcoin, I can send like 10 cents to China, and it'll arrive like an email right away. And it's the same as if I sent 10 cents to you sitting right next to me. So I think there is some fundamental power there, both in terms of payments and storing value that Bitcoin offers that other technologies don't offer. So that combined with the decentralization factor, I think that Bitcoin is just something people should recognize as very powerful, regardless of whether or not you want to use it. That's obviously your choice. But it's something that is very interesting and that I believe is very important. So regardless of how you want to use Bitcoin, I think it's very important that you understand Bitcoin.
Well, thank you so much for kind of walking us through from your perspective, which being the first employee at Coinbase and seeing Coinbase grow from like 3 people, or I guess 2 people right when you first met them, to like what, over 40 now?
Yeah, over 40 and a remote team of over 40.
Yeah, so like you've seen a lot. Now you guys have like over $30 million. Like you were already doing your thesis on Bitcoin beforehand. So thank you so much for educating everybody on Bitcoin.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me.
Awesome. All right, bye guys.